Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Opening day for the Nittany Lion basketball team tonight. They have Delaware State in the Jordan Center at 7. Then Lehigh will be here on Friday night, and that will be the 7:30 start. Mm-hmm. And then 12 and a half hours after that broadcast is over with, back on the air.
Oh, yeah.
For the game on Saturday with Michigan.
So enthused.
No, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
It's so let's start with the football part of it for obvious reasons. I mean,
of course,
we talk about the Saints, but we're not going to do that.
I don't think I want to talk about the Saints. It was a weekend.
So let's, before I get to Penn State's level of play on Saturday, which was really good, I will start with the Michigan thing. There's a lot of rumors running around as what the Big Ten could or could not do and what could happen or not happen to Jim Harbaugh. At this hour, I don't care. Okay? At this hour, everything is about Saturday and winning the game. I don't care who's over there. I don't care who's not over there. It doesn't matter. Okay? All that stuff will sort itself out in due time. It's all about the game. Okay? The other side issues can be dealt with by other people at this time. It's about the game. I don't care if he's coaching there or he's not coaching there. Just like, you know what? He doesn't care if I'm broadcasting it or not. Mm-mm. To which I say, what a coincidence. Okay? I don't care. Mm-hmm. Right? It's all about the game. It's not about all this other stuff. Now, all that other stuff leads us to this week. And all that other stuff will lead to something happening in the future. But this is about the game. It's all about the game. Because Penn State needs the game. Michigan needs the game. Contrary to popular belief, Michigan needs the game.
Yeah.
Penn State needs the game. So that's why it's the game of the week. And that's what it's about. Not about the side issues this week. This week it's about the game. And I understand the total and complete fascination with what is alleged to have done. And look, when the number one word associated with your program over and over again is allegedly, that's not good.
No, it's not.
Okay? I mean, and they're talking about three things. Allegedly did it. It's alleged they did it. When allegedly is the number one word associated with your program, that is not good. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of allegedly stories out there. Right? But somebody else needs to sort that out. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's all about the game. In this week, I mean, obviously, if something happens, we'll talk about it. But this is the whole ball game right here. It's about locking in and playing the game, and then after that, let's see how the results turn out. And
Agreed.
I completely get. Like, for example, I had dinner with Jack Ham and Steve Smear. You know, somebody asked me, you were listening to the Michigan Man podcast that I was on. Right? I thought I was very diplomatic.
Yeah.
About when I was asked about it.
But now you're not on that podcast.
No, but I'm kind of giving the same answer essentially. And Steve Smear was talking about. He says, I've been reading as much as I can about this. He says, and he's right. A lot of people are reading up about it. A lot of people are looking for information about it. There's a new story that seems to come out every day. People are wondering what is going to happen. Last week had been the week before had been a bye week for Michigan. Now they play Purdue. They win the game as expected with relative ease. Really, all the Michigan games have really played out the same way. Get out there, get the job done, and when it's over with, they've taken care of business, and that's it. And the really good teams aren't in close games. Well, Michigan has not been in any close games, and you go from there. So the fascination, I totally get, because this is three not small things, three big things all rolled into 10 months for that program where you have to sit back and say, what is going on there? But now it's Monday of game week. It's all about the game. Everything's about the game.
Mm-hmm.
The side issues will take care of themselves. So something will crop up, and if it does, we'll talk about it.
Of course.
But I'm not gonna sit here and spend a lot of time on it this week unless something dramatic does happen.
Agreed.
Only because the game means everything.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the game that happened this past weekend,
Yeah.
Penn State, Maryland. Of course, the game ended 51-15. I would like it known on the pregame show here, I predicted 52-14 was my final score prediction. I said it on the show. I felt confident in it. I had the correct number of points. I was off by one either side. But as someone who is looking from the outside in, this feels like Penn State needed to just hammer somebody. And the UMasses of the world wasn't what they needed. They needed to hammer someone in the Big Ten and just blow the doors off of them.
It's interesting because Maryland had lost 3 games. But every game was down to the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, they played them deep into the game. It wasn't until the fourth quarter everything kind of broke loose. Right? They lose by, 3 to Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
They lose by less than by one possession. They lose by one possession to Northwestern. This is the only team, and this is on their field.
Mm-hmm.
And Penn State took them apart.
Penn State boat raced them.
Maryland had scored on its opening drive in 5 of their 8 games going into the game. That tells you that they're really good at their script.
Mm-hmm.
That first dozen to 15 plays that you script out. And they've been really good at it. And Penn State was able to stop them and then took over the ball, and then Penn State scored in its opening drive. And Jack Ham and I looked at each other during the break and said, okay, they're on their way. Because that took away a bread and butter for Maryland, that opening drive, which they'd been so good on. And Penn State took the lead. Now Maryland had to play from behind.
Mm-hmm.
And Penn State did a great job of taking away the Maryland running game.
I don't think it existed.
No, it did not. And with Talia Tagovailoa, they threw the ball a ton. But you get 4 takeaways in the game. He completes the pass to Felton, and then as Adise is taking him down, he's rolling him. He's on top of Adise. He fumbles the ball. I think Zane Durant recovered that one. You get the interception by DeLuca. You get the interception by Rojas. Rojas forces a fumble, and Jordan Vandenberg recovers. And you get 4 takeaways in the game. Your special teams were solid.
Singleton 51-yard return.
Kickoff return. Riley Thompson had a couple of punts. Falcons hit 3 field goals. The kickoffs.
Gabe Boser just bombs them.
Right. So, and then you get to the offense. And Drew Aller that's the way Drew practiced all week. He looked sharp, ready to go. Allen, you get into some of these games where they're bunching the box. Allen does a great job in traffic and with the jump cuts and the power, and it makes a difference. Nick is going to hit one, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, I know I've been saying it for weeks. He will hit one.
Well, he's had these 2 kickoff returns back-to-back weeks, 50-yarders, and it's like, okay, you see it. It feels like he's got confidence now running the ball or just having the ball in open space.
Oh, confidence is not his issue.
Yeah.
That's not his issue, okay?
But it's more of
but
he hadn't had one yet, and then those 2 happen, and it's like, okay, back-to-back weeks, it's building.
But this is, okay, paralysis analysis stuff. Oh, he's bulked up. He's a step slower. Like, no, he's 4 pounds lighter than last year.
Mm-hmm.
And on Fridays, I know what he clocks out on. Now, I'm not at liberty to tell you what the number is.
Mm-hmm.
That is up to the program to reveal what his miles per hour happens to be on a given Friday. But if you were standing there with me, you'd be like, well, I feel silly for saying that.
Yeah, he might get in legal trouble if he was running down a street in somewhere. And
it's like, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a question for him of getting a lane to do it. He needs a lane. And you feel like there have been too many times where you feel like there's that one last person like that he beats him and they grab the ankle. They grab what? It's just like, like you're like Jack and I be like, oh God, he was close. He was that close to going.
We've seen like 6 this season where you could see all of a sudden the green opens up, the heavens part, and then someone grabs his ankle and brings him down. And you're like, that would be 70 yards.
But then there is Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Allen in traffic is brilliant. Jump cuts, the power, the touchdown he scored was as spectacular a 10-yard inside run as you're going to see. It was like, holy mackerel, pushing the entire pile into the end zone. And Keandre Lambert-Smith came up big. You've been waiting to see who the compliment would be on the other side. Jack and I had talked repeatedly about Dante Cephas. You could just see in the last couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks or so, he was really starting to settle in and felt he had a shot because Harrison Walls couldn't play on Saturday. And Cephas played really well. Caught the 2 touchdown passes. I think that game did a lot for his confidence. Like, wow, he's an older player. He should be confident. Look, you're learning a whole new system, all new teammates. You're trying to impress them. There's a lot of different things going in terms of the learning curve and everything goes with it. Well, now you make a couple plays like that in the game. Like all of a sudden, like, hey, you feel like your, quote, old self again.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a difference. And the tight ends they have.
Warren and Johnson, consistent.
Yeah. Again, you're going to see 4 terrific tight ends on the field in this game on Saturday. I mean, the 2 tight ends, Loveland and Barner, the transfer from Indiana, are terrific tight ends. And then you got Johnson and Warren, both really, really good. So it's going to be it'll be another one of those games with a lot of talent on the field. But they played really well and they played efficient. They played efficiently.
That they do.
And that's what made such a big difference. It's just they just went out and they played really well.
They just looked confident.
Yeah.
I know it's not really a confidence thing, but just they looked like they knew what they were doing. And I know that Indiana game, it just felt like there was murkiness everywhere. But finally we saw this team just played well. The O-line played well.
Yes,
Drew Aller looked good.
The offensive line played very well.
Drew Aller's footwork looked good. And that was a big thing for him. And he looked like he was making throws. He was making plays. Everyone was making catches. Everything worked. And you kind of needed it to at some point. If there was 1 week to have it all click together, this is the week that the offense played amazingly, the defense played amazingly, special teams played amazingly. I know it's a stat you brought up, but Maryland ran 58 plays. And you discussed this on the postgame show. 12 of them were tackles for loss.
Yes.
That's wild.
I mean, that's better than 1 out of every 5 plays was a loss on the play. And that's remarkable. And, so you played that way. And let's get to the other remarkable part. You're playing on the road. And 60% of the stadium, Penn State fans. Really? 60% of the fans in the stadium in a road game were Penn State fans.
And Maryland always says, we get up for this game. We're always ready for it. And it's like, what is it, the SoFi Stadium, how it's never actually a place the Chargers or Rams are a home team. It's the away fans that are there more. It's that. Maryland their stadium isn't a real home stadium. And it was
going to happen
hilarious.
The same thing when they have Michigan the week after this. Same thing's going to happen. Michigan's going to come in there. Their fans will invade the place. I mean, especially for the people who can't get tickets to their games. And that's And the Penn State fans just took the place over. I mean, I think I made the comment during the broadcast. I said, imagine being the home team and feeling like you had to do the noise drill during the week. Because the opposing team's fans are going nuts in there.
Mm-hmm.
The best passing team they played this year. The best passing team they played. Now McCarthy's a better quarterback than Tagovailoa. Let's not even kid ourselves. I like the way J.J. McCarthy is playing very, very well, and Roman Wilson is a terrific wide receiver. I know he had a big game against Purdue, and that's his second career 100-yard receiving game.
Yeah,
but the guy has 20 touchdowns in his career. He's got 10 this year. He had 2 here in Beaver Stadium 2 years ago against Joey Porter, no less, and he is a really good player. The running game, it's interesting how the running numbers for Michigan are very similar to the Penn State running numbers because, and I know Mike Fitzgerald on the podcast I just did ask me about that, and they said, look, teams have decided they want JJ to beat them. Teams have decided they want Drew to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
So people have been stacking the box, 6 to 8 guys in the box, trying to do everything they can to take the running game away. That's been a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened. It's happening. Like everybody thinks that everything only happens to their team.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Indiana game. Oh, after blah, 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 blah. And then they forget Florida State beat Boston College by 2.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You see what's happened with USC. I mean, Alex Grinch ended up getting fired. Jack and I were listening to that game driving back. Pete Arbogast, who does the USC games, I really like Pete. Personally like Pete a lot because I've done some Rose Bowls and Pete's a great guy. He has a dry sense of humor. Well, the dry sense of humor was coming out in the Washington game, and they're at the 9-yard line. They give it to Johnson. Well, that'll flip the field. It's like Jack and I drove off the road.
I want to read this stat line to people because I saw this and I didn't believe it when I was looking at how Johnson played against USC. Like, I felt bad for USC's defense. At some point in time, I felt bad.
I don't. It's up to them to execute. They're not executing.
But just the numbers on his game. So they, of course, won 52-42. Dylan Johnson, 26 carries, 256 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
They ran for 320.
Yeah. One would assume if you have 256 yards and 26 carries, one of them was like a 90, 80-yarder. No, longest was 53.
And that was the run that flipped the field in the fourth quarter.
But just 10 yards a carry.
I mean, every time you turned around, there was like, they're popping. Like, all of a sudden, yep, they're in trouble. Nope, not in trouble anymore. Right? And the key is they're playing the game. I'll tell you one of the key moments in the game was the big mistake Caleb, I didn't see it. I was only listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a chance to get a field goal late.
Mm-hmm.
With the idea of, hey, we'll get the ball back and whatever. And he took a sack.
Mm-hmm.
How the heck, as a veteran quarterback, do you take a sack on that play? And I didn't see the play, so but I'm just going by the description that Pete gave. And that's Jack and I are looking at each other like, then I was looking at the road.
Yeah.
But why, as a veteran quarterback, are you taking a sack? Just get out of the pocket, throw the thing away, just get rid of it.
By the way, Michael Penix Jr. balling out this year. He is putting himself into a very good conversation as a senior.
He'd slumped the last 2 games before this game. But you're going to say his numbers in this game were great.
His numbers in this game, he threw the ball for almost as much as Johnson ran the ball for. It was 22 for 30, 256 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. A good game. Outside of that 1 pick, pretty darn good overall. But he threw for the exact same number of yards Johnson ran for, which is just kind of funny to see.
Yeah. They couldn't stop him. And everybody at Oklahoma will tell you that's how Oklahoma played defense.
Mm-hmm. They didn't.
And I've talked, how many times have I talked about the USC defense this year? That the big problem is they give up so many stinking points I mean, points, yards, the pressure on that offense all the time to score on every drive. I mean, that's hard because every drive, they feel like they have to score. And they get to see what masks their defense. This is okay. You want a defense that gets takeaways, correct? Of course you do. All right. But they get some takeaways, but they give it masks. Even in this game, they got an interception in the end zone. It was a deflected ball off a helmet.
Yeah.
And they got an interception in the end zone. Like, wow, okay. But that's it. And so it gets. If I am Lincoln Riley, suddenly I'm rich.
Oh yeah.
I'm Lincoln Riley. This is what I'm looking for in my defensive coordinator. Get me one more stop each half. I didn't say get a stop each half. Get me one more stop each half. And I'm going to win some games. Because there was a point in the game where Washington had the interception in the end zone and then got a field goal. And Pete said, well, that's 1.5 stops. And there, I'll give you an example. On my chart, I keep a stat, and I keep the stat myself, and it's not that difficult to calculate. I mean, this isn't like some ingenious, like, let's calculate pi here. It is stop rate. How many drives does a team have, and how many times do they stop them and not give up a score? So the score, okay. Penn State's stop rate on the season as a defense, 84% of the drives against Penn State have ended without points.
Not bad.
Right? 84%. Now, I don't know what USC's happens to be.
It's not that good.
Right? But that's where Penn State is. I can't off the top. Penn State's had 112 drives against it. That part I remember. I can't remember how many they've stopped, but it's 84%, whatever the number happens to be, which means it's up in the 90s.
94.
Okay, 94 out of 112. That means they've scored 12 times in 9 games. That includes field goals. Okay? USC's not getting that. In other words, I'm not looking at Manny Diaz saying, get me one more stop each half. Right? He's already getting, I'm talking about his unit, not him personally. But the defensive unit, right? You're getting me a lot of stops.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And you're going to have to get a lot of stops this week. But that, if you're USC, that's what I'm looking for, one stop each half. Because think about the transition into the Big Ten. Well, the transition into the Big Ten, next year they're going to have to play an older Drew Aller, an older Katron Allen, an older Nicholas Singleton. And then we'll see who else comes back with the group, because those guys are all sophomores. So, right? They're going to have to play them. They still have to play UCLA. Oh, they still have to play. They have to play Michigan. I think they're playing both Oregon and Washington too, aren't they? I don't know, or at least one of them. I think they're playing one of them, aren't they?
You'll find out in 1 second.
Unless they requested, we don't want to play Oregon and Washington ever again. They have to play one of them, I think, don't they? I know they're playing UCLA, Michigan, and Penn State.
Michigan, they have Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska, UCLA.
Okay, so they got to play Washington again. All right? They have to play UCLA. They have to play Penn State. They have to play Michigan. Now, the games, for example, with Michigan and Rutgers, we'll see what J.J. McCarthy decides to do, whether he comes out or not. Could, in all likelihood, be like Rutgers is a really physical football team. Monangai is a terrific physical running back, right? And Greg has them playing Greg Schiano. He used to be here, so it's not good. I apologize for the first name thing. But Greg has them playing like the way, like, He wants to play tough, hard-nosed, physical football up front. They are playing physical football up front with a tight end in Langan, the former quarterback, who's now been a tight end forever. Good blocker. Manungai's a tough, hard-nosed runner. Wimsatt, the quarterback, is a tough, hard-nosed runner. Struggles a bit throwing the ball, but when it comes to running the ball, he's physical. They're going to have to face a physical style next year. I'm talking about them. They're going to have to face a physical style in Michigan next year. They're going to play Wisconsin. Guess what? Wisconsin is not for the faint of heart. They play a physical style of football. They may not throw the ball all that well, but they play physical football. Yeah, they'll hit you. So they're going to be playing that to go with Washington. Kalen DeBoer wants to play wide open all over the field. So that's going to be, and that game's up in Seattle, I assume.
It is. Yeah, they're away to Michigan and away to Washington and UCLA.
Right, and they're home to Penn State. Now the UCLA game's up in the Rose Bowl. So that's your basic 26-mile trip. Now they finally have one where it's like, hey, a bus, good, let's go. But that's the way it's going to be in this conference. Now at the same time, and UCLA, by the way, plays a somewhat physical brand right now with Chip. And UCLA's defense is very good. Oregon and Washington, okay, let's not make the mistake of saying, well, here in the Big Ten, we play physical football, and they're not going to be. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring in as my first guest, even though we can't do it for obvious reasons, Joe Tiller. Right? I'll never forget Joe Tiller, who is the person, above all, who changed the style of this league. He changed the style of the league, and you're talking about a guy that leaves Wyoming, goes to Purdue, and they're throwing the ball all over the place. This is where you miss Joe Tiller. I think Joe passed away like 6 years ago or something like that. The wit of the guy. So they used to do a Big Ten conference call with all the coaches consecutively. And Joe Tiller comes up, and Tiller was on before Joe Paterno. So I always heard the Joe Tiller press conference. He always made me laugh a little bit when I would hear him talk. Well, here he is in his first season. So it's 96 maybe, 97, right around. Maybe it was 97, somewhere in there. He's coaching them. And they're throwing the ball all over the lot. And one of these old-time Big Ten writers, probably, my guess, didn't vote Penn State number one in 94 because Penn State was too good and they're not used to seeing that. Ask Tiller. He says, look, do you think that style's going to work in November in the Big Ten? His answer was beautiful. He says, I coached for several seasons in Wyoming, used the same system. That's not exactly the banana belt.
He started coaching in 97, by the way, and he did coach the greatest quarterback ever, so helps. Yeah.
So he had Archie Manning. He had Drew Brees.
I had to throw one shot of love into my guy, Drew Brees,
who was 0-2 as a starter against Penn State.
Yes. By the way,
yes, I announced Drew Brees' game.
And fun fact, his Purdue squad, Tiller's Purdue squad, only got shut out once. What game was it? It
was 12-0 to Penn State in 2006.
October 28th.
Yeah, that was the one. Okay, the reason I remember it. Okay.
Because it was a 12-0 football game, which is just terrible.
No, you know what? You want to know why?
Oh, boy.
It's brought up to me all the time. Okay. Last play of the game, Curtis Painter was the quarterback. And so even though it's 12-0, they ran one of those let's lateral the ball to everybody. And finally, Josh Gaines ended it by picking off the last lateral and returning it to the 25-yard line. And they made 8 laterals on the play. And I got all the names right. So it's in the All Sports Museum. It's one of the plays that they play there. So that's why I know it was 12-0. I knew. That's the reason I know. Because it's been, I always tell everybody the same thing every time. Well, the right 8 guys handled it. Okay? So, it's your job. Your job is to know these things. But yes, that's the reason I know it.
Oh, boy.
What? It's an illness.
It is an illness. But either way, I think if this USC team came to play now, I think they would be the one team out of this group of teams coming in from out west that would have an issue. Because I think their defense currently, if you were to put them up against Corum and Edwards or Singleton and Allen, I worry for the number of points that would get put up.
This would be the team that would struggle the most. And it's funny you brought that up because Jack and I were listening to the game driving back, and I said, the odd thing is, in this particular year, I said, of the 4 teams coming in, I said, they might be the worst of the 4. And they've got the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, which, by the way, is set 82 times a game. Not by Pete.
By everybody else. Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams does XYZ. It's like the Patrick Mahomes thing. Mahomes does a simple pass, and it's like, oh my gosh, greatest things in sliced bread. No, he just made a basic read, and he made the pass, and he did what he had to do. Wasn't anything special.
No, I'm still glad that Penn State has Caleb's high school teammate, Olu Fashanu.
Do you get to bring up to Olu, the Heisman winning quarterback, every second of the day?
No, he was our post-game guest, and it never came up. But you know what? We'll see where they are next year. But now back to my point about Washington and Oregon. They can talk about the pounding style of the Big Ten, which can happen. I mean, especially in the Western Division. Okay? I mean, the Western Division is... but when you sit there, Oregon and Washington and USC, we'll see how Chip wants to play based on personnel. I mean, I want to see that. But USC plays that wide open pass game. I mean, they're all over the place. Offensively, Washington, Oregon, and USC are going to bring a different style compared to some of the other teams in the conference. And they may influence how everybody else plays and not the other way around.
I think people, myself included, have this almost narrow-minded approach to what these offenses are, because for a lot of people now, the Oregon team we think of is the Kenyon Barners, the teams that just had speed everywhere and just flew all over the field. And they torched everybody. That's what we think of when we think of these offenses out west. But realistically, it's not just that, because this Washington team, as we see with Dylan Johnson, is mean.
And Kalen DeBoer, by the way, knows the Big Ten. He was the offensive coordinator at Indiana. Right? So he knows the Big Ten. Lincoln Riley does not, in terms of the depth of it. Chip doesn't. Dan Lanning doesn't. But DeBoer does.
I have a question for you. And this is a funny one. I got asked this by somebody, and I didn't have an answer to it. What do you think is better currently? Iowa's offense or USC's defense?
That actually came up. We were on the road for 3.5 hours. Different topics come up. And what's better? Well, USC would beat Iowa, I think. Penn State shut them out 31-0. USC would beat Iowa by at least 14 points, maybe 21, because the offense for USC would do enough to get the job done. And then defensively, I mean, you really have to stack the box against them. They really just run the football. I mean, they're not throwing the ball well. I think Deacon Hill threw for, 65 yards on Saturday? He was a 10 of 15 for 65 yards. He averaged 4 yards per attempt. And that's...
This I caught a little bit of this game. It was truly... Wrigley Field saw a baseball scoreline put up on it with Iowa and Northwestern, 10-7. That's a baseball score.
That's what we expected, because you know when it comes to gambling, I'm a big zero.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The line was.
Except Jack and I have had fun. Like, we always look up every week what's the over and under on Iowa because of what's going on. So let's take a moment here
I can tell you exactly what the line was because I was asked this question.
It's 29.5 on
29.5, and I told everyone who asked me, take the under.
Right, and that's what we said. I said, if you bet the over, you're an idiot.
If you take the under, you're going to win. Yeah.
By the way, Preston Goddard's out for a long forearm fracture. Out.
Yeah.
That's a big one for the Eagles.
There goes my fantasy football tight end.
There you go. He is. Let's see, Big Ten. So they play Rutgers this week, right?
They're going to get slaughtered by Rutgers, I think.
No, I don't know. I don't think so. Rutgers throws the ball okay, and Iowa's at home.
Yeah.
Let's see. What is the over-under?
It can't be good, whatever it is. It's not going to be good.
I'm not quite there yet. Let's see here.
I know what
the Oh, here it is, ladies and gentlemen.
May I guess? I'm not looking. May I guess?
Please.
I'm going to go.
It's what I predicted with Jack the other night in the car.
Rutgers has not scored really well, but who knows? 28.5.
You are spot on.
Yes. Oh, boy. 28. I'm scrolling down. I see it. 28.5 with a 1.5 point line, minus 1.5 Iowa. Oh, boy.
All right. Because Jack and I are having this thing. How low can it go? I'm telling you, Nebraska might be lower.
Uh-huh.
When they play on Black Friday.
The passing yards, Cade McNamara is the guy who has the most passing yards and most passes so far.
Right, he's been out.
He's been out. Just the number of 46 for 90 for being your passing leader, and he's been out, of course. But, regardless, 46 for 90. I think Caleb Williams throws 90 passes in a game and a half.
Oh, yeah. Right. Right. Now, I will be fair to Iowa in this regard. Cade McNamara is their starting quarterback. He's out. The two tight ends, Eric All and Luke Lachey, are both out, although Jim told me that his son might be back for the bowl game, maybe. And I told Jim Lachey is the former Redskins, and that's what they were called back then.
Yeah.
Okay. Offensive lineman, All-American at Ohio State. He's the analyst for Ohio State. So I talked to Jim before the game a couple weeks ago, and I asked him about Luke. And I mean, so they've had three key components out. Now they weren't humming along. Now Luke Lachey was out for the Penn State game, but All and McNamara both played, and All had the big turnover on the opening drive there. And that was like it. That was their offensive night was over. And Penn State ran 97 plays. I mean, their defense was as much of a problem as their offense was that night. But it's interesting. The best offensive player they have is Cooper DeJean, the punt returner.
He was the only hope they had.
Well, he is
against Minnesota?
Against Minnesota, and they made that.
Yeah.
I mean, is it technically a correct call? Okay, technically,
by the letter
it
of
is
the
a
law.
correct call. It is not a common sense call. Remember, the call in the field was touchdown.
Yeah.
Now the play, okay, we're going to review the play. Well, Jack and I are watching the play because we had the game on the plane because we were flying back. And the first, the only thing we're thinking about is did he step out of bounds because he was so near the sideline when he took it. He's in by, I don't know, a foot. Like, well, that's it. Touchdown. They're going to win. How bizarre. They win a game like this. No, they called that. But I know at one point, who was the defensive back? Really, he was really good for them.
Oh, boy. For who? For
Iowa.
Iowa defensive backs. Desmond King?
Desmond King. There have been some thought about playing, because these issues go back. And there was some thought about playing him selectively both ways, like some packages on offense. And before the Penn State game a couple of years ago, where Penn State won the game like 40-something to 10 or some number.
40-something to not a lot.
Right. That they had practiced that week with King playing some offense, a few plays here and there. And he never got in the game offensively against Penn State. I'm telling you right now, I look at DeJean, and I think to myself, he is the one guy you have that can play? I mean, in terms of
also, if you put him on offense, I'm guessing if it's Rutgers this week, they're going to probably have to put somebody on him. So it might open something up somewhere else.
Well, I'm saying, in other words, if I'm going to get well, let's keep it to a minimum here.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to run a minimum of 50 plays in the game. Probably 60 or whatever, but let's go with minimum. If I could get him in the game on offense, maybe 10 to a dozen.
Let's go 10 times, 20% of the game.
In selective situations, it's third down. Right there on third down a lot. All right, on third down, right, that can maybe stretch the field. Right, stretches it out, maybe clears out something underneath because the guy's a great athlete. You know, without taking away from the fact that he's a terrific defensive back. I mean, that'd be one of the things. If I were brainstorming with them. And by the way, Penn State Rutgers is a noon kickoff. Rutgers on Senior Day. Rutgers is a good football team.
They are
not even remotely put them in the category of what you thought of Rutgers of old. Okay, are they a great team? No. Are they a good football team? Yes, and they're a good football team because they have power up front. They have a really terrific running back in Monungai, a quarterback that can run, and their back seven. Their back seven is very good.
And before we wrap, Steve, did you see a play? It was the fumble Rooski they did.
Yes, I did. We actually were watching when that happened.
It was quite, I think, beautiful. It undersells how nice it looked. They completely sold the tush push.
Yep.
And I think it was Monungai just bolts out for 50, 60 yards.
He got 40 on the play.
Yeah, it was golden to watch. It was beautiful.
It was great.
Made me smile.
And they got a field goal out of it.
And they did. But hey, they went up 9-7 at halftime against Ohio State, which was pretty darn good.
Okay, what does that tell you? Because Henderson played in the game, and Henderson's a difference maker. Made that big catch over the middle for them.
Him and Marvin Harrison Jr. at the end of the day did their jobs.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr., he didn't have a great game, but he caught the touchdowns at the end. And
well, I don't think their quarterback had a great game.
No.
Again, I walked into the Penn State game and thought McCord's a good quarterback. Not great, not exceptional. He's a good quarterback. I exited the game that day, and I thought he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Not great, not exceptional.
No changes.
Nope.
No change whatsoever. But you know what's got to change? We sadly have to leave the studio. It's a heartbreak here on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.